In this video, we're going to be taking a look at some basic data analysis that we can do with the data that is exported. So for this particular situation, we're going to be taking a look at two different tools here. One's going to be a spreadsheet program. In this case, it's going to be the online version of Microsoft Excel, but you're certainly welcome to use any spreadsheet program that has basic filtering. And on our left side, we'll take a look at something a little bit more complicated through the R programming language. So first of all, we need to take a look at the data that we've exported here. In this case, we've exported a wide variety of different information. We have fuel consumed, we have information about weapon endgame, we have information about when weapons were fired. We also know exactly when specific units were fired, and everything, of course, was split out by different programs. So for this particular analysis, we're going to take a look at the weapons over in Excel, and then we're going to do a little bit of summarization techniques using RStudio. So what I've done is I've imported all the weapon fire data that we have so far. And again, this has been broken down by side based on what I've done for my particular scenario. I'm interested in a couple different things here. I'm interested in things like the average range that a particular weapon was deployed at. I'm also going to be interested in, how effective the different weapons were. So the first thing I'm going to do is whenever we get any sort of data like this, is I want to make sure the data is set up with a filter view. Now, depending what spreadsheet program you're going to be using here, this is going to have a wide variety of different sort of connotations and extensions depending on what you're going for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the data menu and I'm going to find this little button that says the word filter and press it. As soon as I hit that button, you're going to see that we have these brand new little arrows next to each one of these items. And that gives us the ability to sort or even link them. So for example, if I wanted to see, give me everybody by A through Z here, I could simply select that category and it'll go ahead and sort all the data in an A through Z format. I'll go ahead and expand this one a little bit to make this a little bit easier. So you can see these are all the AAA batteries that were used for this particular time. We have our firing latitude and longitude. We even have things that we can go ahead and sort by. And anytime we want to, we can always come in here and get a better idea. In this case, of course, since this unit fires in all directions, there's no firing course, so we don't have to worry about anything like that. So this is already a tremendous amount of information. So what I want to do is I want to try to go ahead and do some quick little analysis here. So what I'm going to say is let's assume that all of our AAA weapons here, we're curious at what range were they engaging and how successful were they. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and sort it just using a basic little text filter here. Oop. Firing class, we'll go text filter contains, and we'll type in AAA. Press OK. And now what's happened is our program has automatically only given us anything that has AAA in its firing class. Now, if we wanted to be even more specific, we could actually come down here. You'll notice there's a DBID, and we can narrow it down by DBID as well. So in this case, I'll be even more precise, and we'll just concentrate on the KS19s here. So I'll do number filters. I'll say equals. Whoop. You got to be careful with this particular tool. We're going to say 1885. Press OK, and now we have all the units that are only 1885. So we'll go ahead and make our way all the way down to the firing range option here. So we have contact altitude, latitude, longitude. We know what contact ID we were being fired at. We can see the general speed of the particular contact that we're engaging. We even have things such as distance, which is the part that I'm interested in here. So this is the range that the particular unit was shot at. So what we can do here is we can use some nice little tools such as the subtotal function to get a feel for exactly how much of this was actually used. So I'm going to go ahead and say equals subtotal. I'm going to use function number 1, which is average, comma, and I'm simply going to say what I like to do. In this case, I'm going to say AC1 through AC, I'll do 119. Now, if I press enter, I can have a little thing that gives me the average range. So now I know the average range of that particular one with just a little bit of work. Now, what I'm interested in here is I can see that we've got about an average range of 1.4 nautical miles. How does that compare to the other AAA that we had in this particular scenario? So what I can do up here is I can come up top. I can go ahead and switch my particular firing unit ID. So go ahead and clear the filters real quickly. And we'll go ahead and grab our other ones as well. Looks like we have, let's see here, 1405 is the SAM battalion, but we're interested in the 1838 here. So I go to the top. Press the button again, number filters equals 1838. Press OK. And now we can see their average firing range was significantly less, which makes sense because it's a smaller caliber weapon as well. And we can also go ahead and say, well, what were they targeting? They seem to be targeting this particular aircraft of this particular side as well. Now let's continue with our example here and go take a look at exactly what would happen if we wanted the average for our SAM batteries, which have a little bit more reach as well. So those are the 1405 is the DBID. So I can go ahead and say number filters equals 1405, press OK. And I can see they were firing at an average range of 25.9 nautical miles, which for this particular weapon is a pretty long shot. We can also see that most of the targets by these were probably going to be the different escort aircraft. And in one case, it even took a pot shot at one of the incoming harms in this particular situation. Now, the reason this is so powerful is because we can now narrow this down further. Now, for example, I want to know what was the average range engaging just the F4Gs. So now what I could actually do is I could come up here. I could go ahead and sort this as well to be able to actually narrow this down. So I can say contains, I'm going to do F4G, press the OK button. And you can see that for the F4Gs, only 2 missiles were launched at them, and they were fired at an average range of about 26 nautical miles. Now, if we want to go try out the F5Fs, we can also do the same thing, and again, in order to go ahead and put together some kind of report that basically concentrates on this. Now, where this gets more powerful is we can actually summarize it by type of target, and we'll take a look at that in a minute when we get over to R. So we'll say F5, and you can see the F5s were launched at a significantly longer range. Again, this is just one of the files. This is just the weapon fired. And this is just using basic filtering to kind of drill down to find exactly the different types of information that we might be interested in a scenario. So this is a kind of good starter point, but usually what happens is when it comes to data analysis is folks like to go ahead and bring things into a slightly more complicated program to allow us to dig a little bit deeper and even do some modeling. So for this one, I'm going to go ahead and use RStudio. This is the basic version. And I'm going to go ahead and grab that folder that we had from before, and I'm going to import that data into here so we can take a look at it in a little bit more general terms. So we'll go ahead and open up R1. We'll go ahead and do a weapon fired. Again, this is the same piece of information that we had before. I'll press OK. And what it's going to do is it's going to bring up our entire little notepad that we had here. So there's a couple of things I'm going to have to do here. So I'm going to have to tell the program what type of variable that we have stored in each one of these items. All right, now that we've gone ahead and told the program which each one of these columns is as far as value, I'm going to come down here and press import. Now we have the ability to look at the data in a slightly different sort of way, but since we're working with something over here, we now have the ability to go ahead and kind of narrow some of these items down directly. Also notice if we're missing any issues, it'll go ahead and give those to us down there at the bottom. In this case, I'm just going to study this real quick to make sure everything looks in good order. Everything looks pretty good here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to do a quick basic analysis, just like we had over in Excel. Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the Georgia weapon fired. We're going to go ahead and pipeline that over. We're going to group by, and we're going to say firing unit DBID. So what this will do is this will actually narrow all the data down like this. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that information and I'm going to summarize the average range that we fired at by type of firing unit. So we'll say average range, and we'll say the mean of, I believe, let me make sure I get the distance exactly perfect here. That is going to be target contact range slant. Target contact range slant. And then we'll go ahead and run the analysis. And now we can see by database ID what the average range of the individual attack was. And you can see this gives you tremendously powerful options. Now, what I could do is I could take this and feed this directly into a graphic visualization to have a good idea of what the different platforms are going to be like. We can even spin this one around and see how many shots were by a particular unit. We can see ranges, distance, success rate, anything we need to do. Now, another common thing that I usually do with this particular software is doing things for logistical purposes. So I'm going to go ahead and import all the fuel use data for the other side. Let's go ahead and grab fuel consumed from NATO. That looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and rename this real quick. NF fuel, we'll call this N fuel just to make this a little bit simpler. I'm going to confirm that all my values make sense. Looks pretty good to me. I'm going to go ahead and press the import. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same idea, but this time we're going to go ahead and see what unit used how much fuel. So I'll say N fuel. We'll go ahead and say group by. We're going to need to go ahead and use, let's see here, we have all sorts of different units here. Well, unit side, unit class, we'll do it unit class is going to be the simplest. Unit class, and we'll go ahead and summarize. We'll say total fuel equals sum of the fuel quantity consumed per second. So now if we run our report here, you can see very clearly that our A-10s were the thirstiest of all our particular aircraft in this operation, and it breaks down how much total fuel was used in the entire scenario. We have the ability to go ahead and arrange this if we needed to. We can use this to generate a visualization, and we can use this for the purposes of narrowing the data down and actually comparing each individual iteration should we need to do so, but that's a little outside the context of the video. As you can see, with just a little bit of playing with the data and a little bit of a setup, we have the ability to make some very, very serious, interesting deductions from everything that we've seen.